Good evening, wrestling fans. We're your hosts, Louis.
And Jaden.
And behind the scenes, producer and director, Yesenia De Leon.
And this is
Evolution of Pro Wrestling. Today's topic, fans, is going to be about the greatest rivalries of all time, past, present, and future. But before we get into that, we're going to recap this past Sunday's Royal Rumble match that happened. It was an excellent card. We had the Cruiserweights. We had the Women's Royal Rumble, the Men's Royal Rumble. We had Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar. The Bar against Shane McMahon and The Miz, which we saw those titles change hands. But to me, the matches that stepped out was Sasha Banks and Ronda Rousey. The women stole the show that night, especially the Women's Royal Rumble.
I feel like the Bar versus The Miz and Shane McMahon was a very, very, very competitive match. Now, actually, I was really surprised that The Miz and Shane McMahon won that match.
Yep, it was an excellent card. Now we're going to jump into our main topic today, the greatest rivalries of all time. This rivalry begins from past 80s and 90s, going into the Attitude Era. Also in WCW, ECW, many organizations. And there's many rivalries that stand out that today we're going to discuss. Right, Jaden?
Right.
So, one of our first rivalries we're going to mention that goes into the Attitude Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. This is what began the Attitude Era. This is what transcended the wrestling organization that made it better than before. This is where the Monday Night Wars began. And this is where everything transcended to Stone Cold going up against the brass. So, what can we say about this rivalry?
Now, the rivalry started when Vince McMahon announced that he did not want Stone Cold to be champion. Now, Stone Cold ended up winning the was it EWA?
It was the NWA.
NWA title, and after that, the rivalry just got more crazier and crazier and crazier.
Well, he won the WWF title.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, fans. Just a quick miscommunication. The WWF title. Vince McMahon wanted him to be a company guy.
Yeah.
That really didn't work. At first, Stone Cold went along with it, but then all of a sudden he said, you know what, I'm just going to be the rattlesnake and I'm going to do what I got to do. This rivalry went on for many years. This went on for these two fighting in a steel cage match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This went on to the Royal Rumble in 1999, when Vince McMahon and Stone Cold were number 1 and number 2, when Vince McMahon won the Royal Rumble. This rivalry goes back to when Vince McMahon pretty much tricked Stone Cold into thinking that he was there against the Undertaker and the corporate ministry. But truth be told, Vince McMahon was actually the leader of the corporation, and he made Stone Cold's life living hell.
Absolutely right.
And that's what caused the rivalry between these two, that it was insane that these two hated each other with a passion. Now, we don't know what to expect in this type of era, because I don't think you will ever see a type of rivalry like that between Stone Cold and Vince McMahon.
Well, I'd say a type of rivalry that we've seen, like Stone Cold and Vince McMahon, is The Authority and Daniel Bryan.
Well, that's right. That was a pretty good rivalry, because Daniel Bryan had to really fight the odds, because for an entire year he pretty much fought the entire Authority. Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H. This all goes back to SummerSlam, when Daniel Bryan beat John Cena for the WWE World Heavyweight title. Next thing you know, Triple H turns on him, Randy Orton cashes in Money in the Bank, and then that's what created everything. That's when the rivalry became Daniel Bryan and the Authority.
Now let's go to Night of Champions, when Randy Orton went back at it against Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan won that match, but as a fast count, which caused Daniel Bryan to get stripped from the title.
Exactly. He did get stripped of the title. And then they ended up fighting again in Hell in a Cell. Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee. Again, Daniel Bryan got screwed by the Authority. There was no winning for this man. They thought he was a B player. They didn't have any faith in him until Daniel Bryan came out with the Yes Movement. Triple H had no choice but to accept the match that Daniel Bryan challenged him at WrestleMania 30. If Daniel Bryan did not win that match, he would have never got a shot at the title. Won the match, but ended up getting beat down by Triple H at the end of the match. Going into WrestleMania, the second match against Randy Orton and Batista, making Batista tap and becoming the World Heavyweight Champion, which was a triumphant battle between those three. But speaking of triumphant, as a competitor, you have Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. This is a rivalry in the 80s that people today still talk about. This match was what transcended the wrestling business that it is today. 93,000 fans at the Pontiac Silverdome. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, David and Goliath. Pretty much this is a passing of the torch. No one would ever have thought Hulk Hogan was going to beat Andre the Giant.
No way.
15 years undefeated Andre the Giant was. This rivalry continued from WrestleMania 3 going into the following year, WrestleMania 4, when the title was stripped from Andre the Giant because Andre the Giant cheated his way into winning the title at Saturday night's main event. Next thing you know, they continue their rivalry until, unfortunately, Andre the Giant's untimely death, which these two were best of friends, and Andre the Giant pretty much passed the torch over to Hulk Hogan. But speaking of Hulk Hogan, he also had a heated rivalry with Roddy Piper, which went from WWE to WCW, back to WWE, beginning with the war that settled the score, and the first ever WrestleMania match that had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Excellent WrestleMania, which was the reason we have many WrestleManias today. Then you have in WCW, when Hulk Hogan became part of the NWO, Roddy Piper made his debut at Halloween Havoc, which nobody saw coming. Nobody. So that's when they had their match at Starrcade, and they had another match in the following Starrcade, a Steel Cage, which Hulk Hogan won. But then at WrestleMania 19, you had Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan battle, and Roddy Piper returned and attacked Hulk Hogan, which the rivalry began again.
Now, speaking of good rivalries, one of my personal favorites that I can say was a very, very, very good rivalry was Randy Orton and Triple H.
Oh,
now
excellent.
That rivalry started when it started with Evolution. Evolution was a faction of WWE. They were a really good faction. Now, it started when Randy Orton was WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He was the youngest WWE World Heavyweight Champion ever in the WWE until Evolution turned on him. That's when Batista and Randy Orton had a #1 contenders match to see who would face off against Triple H. But, sorry fans, I forgot to mention, Randy Orton lost his title in the Elimination Chamber because Batista helped Triple H eliminate Randy Orton to get the title for Triple H.
Triple H, exactly. And this goes also back to when Randy Orton formed the Legacy. Excuse me. They formed the Legacy with Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. And then they had this, he started keeping this rivalry with Triple H that he went so far as to attack his family. He attacked his wife. He DDT'd his wife in the ring while Triple H was handcuffed. He attacked Vince McMahon. He attacked Shane McMahon, and they had last man standing matches. They had 2 out of 3 fall matches. It went so far that Triple H went to his own house and threw him out of his own window. He brought a sledgehammer to his house. Like, that's unheard of a rivalry like that. You bring it in personal family. That's what led to Randy Orton winning the 2009 Royal Rumble fighting Triple H at WrestleMania for the WWE title. He lost, but he ended up, making a name for himself after that, which was what they wanted. That rivalry, that heated rivalry that a lot of people wanted. And when you speak about rivalries, you also got one that happened last year at WrestleMania. Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles.
Oh, yeah.
This battle goes far back to Japan, when these two used to wrestle in Japan. Do you remember that rivalry when they fought at WrestleMania?
Yes, I do.
How did that go?
That rivalry went it started when they met at Money in the Bank. They met Money in the Bank. The fans were going crazy.
Yeah, I saw that.
The fans
They were going crazy because they saw these two finally ready to hook up.
Yes, so then it started when AJ Styles won the championship title and was good enough to retain the title. And 2018, Shinsuke Nakamura won the Royal Rumble and challenged AJ Styles for the WWE title. Now, sadly, Shinsuke Nakamura did not win that match, which had a big part of his heel turn.
Which was a good heel turn.
Yes.
Because that brought out the character in him to make that rivalry even better. And that's what led to their matches in Crown Jewel and their last man standing matches and live event matches. And it kept going as far as it could. But at the end, AJ Styles proved to be the superior athlete in that rivalry. And you want to talk about another rivalry that was so superior, that drew so much money, and these two were two pit bulls. Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fierce battle. Like, these two went at it like major battles that we would never had imagined.
Those two men had last man standings, ambulance match.
Yeah, they had a Hell in a Cell match. They had a steel cage match. Numerous street fight matches in live shows. It went so far that Braun Strowman flipped over an ambulance just to get at him.
Roman Reigns was in the ambulance.
Exactly. And then while Braun Strowman was in an ambulance too, Roman Reigns took a truck and ran into the ambulance. This was a crazy rivalry that at a point we thought these two were going to kill each other. Like, they had a fierce rivalry that I love so much that I will never forget in this era. But as I said, I'm an old school person, and when it comes to old school eras, to me by far the best rivalry of all time, Ric Flair against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. These two go back since NWA, going into WCW, Chi-Town, when they both fought for the title, when Ricky Steamboat first won his world title against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. That's when Ric Flair was a top heel of all time in WCW and the NWA. To this day, he's still by far the dirtiest player in the game. Does anything and everything to win and cheat. Ricky Steamboat gave him a hell of a battle. They even fought 1 hour in an entire match. That was an excellent rivalry. And to this day, that rivalry still sticks to us to this day. But when it comes to old rivalries, I think one that stands out also is Ric Flair and Sting. These two fought in the first WCW Monday Nitro and ended in the last WCW Monday Nitro. Sting was in the Four Horsemen once. He kicked him out. Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen kicked him out, and that's what led to this rivalry between these two, that they kept going at it each event. The Great American Bash, live shows that they had in WCW that made Ric Flair pretty much made Sting a superstar. But now, look at the era we have now. Can we compare the rivalries from before to now? I don't know. I personally would like to see a rivalry between Shinsuke Nakamura and Finn Balor. I don't know.
I disagree. I would like to see a rivalry between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor.
Well, I don't think so. I think Finn Balor would be a better with Shinsuke would be a better one.
I mean, but come on, let's think about it. Seth Rollins is the hottest thing right now.
Of course he
Seth
is.
Rollins just won the Royal Rumble. Seth Rollins has been through a lot of stuff since he's been in the WWE. Seth Rollins has been pushing himself to the limit to get all the champions he needs, or just to do anything he needs to
I
do.
understand that, but if that was the case, they should have had Finn Balor win the WWE title against Brock Lesnar and make that match at WrestleMania. You know, I'm not taking anything away from Brock Lesnar, but that rivalry, yes, it would be an excellent rivalry. But you got Shinsuke Nakamura and Finn Balor that come from both NXT, both great athletes. But you're right, Seth Rollins is this year's winner of the Royal Rumble. Did an excellent performance, and he is going to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
And let's see how that turns out. Who knows? What if Seth Rollins wins that, and then Finn Balor challenges Seth Rollins to a match for the Universal title?
That could also happen as well. But you also got a women's rivalry that many people wanted to see, but weren't able to due to Becky Lynch's injury. You got Becky Lynch going against Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. That not many people thought that was going to happen, but to me, that's an awesome dream match. Because Ronda Rousey is at the peak of her career. Becky Lynch just won the Women's Royal Rumble, which they didn't know she was even going to show up at the Royal Rumble. And look what happened. Now you got a dream match that's happening. So,
you know, I disagree. I think a dream match that some fans would like to see is Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. Charlotte Flair is the queen. Charlotte Flair has been champion multiple times, and she's seeking to get a chance at getting any title back.
Well, you never know. They can in WrestleMania. You know, WrestleMania is always unpredictable. They can make a triple threat match between Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Ronda Rousey. That would be an excellent way to finish WrestleMania. Of course, you can have another rivalry between Asuka and Ronda Rousey. Both champions fighting each other. Who knows? Anything can happen at WrestleMania. Anything can happen in professional wrestling. You know, you got other rivalries that stand out. Maybe Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley. Two powerhouses that actually, you know, stand out. That Bobby Lashley is currently the Intercontinental Champion that is trying to get that hype now. And trying to get up there and like, okay, let's see what I can do here. Didn't do much in the Royal Rumble. Unfortunately, he got eliminated in 8 seconds. But Braun Strowman lasted to the end in the Royal Rumble. Lost, didn't really get much. But I think it would be a good rivalry between him and Bobby Lashley.
Now, speaking of more good rivalries, a rivalry that I bet some people miss and that I personally miss is Undertaker and Triple H.
That was an excellent
Those guys went at it for the longest. Now, let's take us back to Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania.
Well, this goes back to WrestleMania 17, when Triple H didn't even have an opponent at WrestleMania 17, and pretty much Undertaker came out and said, "You want to fight? You fight the dead man. I'm going to make you famous." That rivalry just took off from there, which led them to have 2 more confrontations actually 3, I'm lying. WrestleMania 27, WrestleMania 28. And also, I believe they fought in Crown Jewel, and Triple H beat him. He finally beat The Undertaker out of all those battles that they had that always... No one would have thought he would have beat The Undertaker.
Now, let's take us back to the Hell in a Cell match. Those guys were going at it. Those guys were beating each other to the death.
They had the bruises to prove it.
And Shawn Michaels was special guest referee. A lot of fans thought Undertaker wasn't going to win that.
Mm-hmm.
Triple H was beating that guy really, really bad. And even Shawn Michaels gave him the help of giving him the super kick. And Triple H mimicking his Tombstone power driver, and Undertaker still managing to kick out. Mm-hmm. So that was honestly a very, very good match.
Yeah, no, it was an excellent match. There's 2 more matches that stick out that I would like to discuss. One of them would be John Cena and The Rock. this rivalry actually got personal. You know, it was like, okay, The Rock left WWE. John Cena started talking about him on Twitter and Instagram. Oh, you're not a superstar. You left the WWE Universe. That's what made The Rock come back to be the host at WrestleMania 27. He didn't like too much what John Cena was saying. And that's what created that rivalry. That these two would do promos against each other and the rap battle. And The Rock constantly talking about his colors and Fruity Pebbles and all that stuff. And this led to the match at WrestleMania 28, I'm sorry, fans. 28, which The Rock won. And that led to John Cena winning the Royal Rumble. To the WrestleMania match, WrestleMania 29, which I was there at WrestleMania 29 when I saw that match, and John Cena took the title from The Rock. Pretty much John Cena was passed the torch over to him, and that's pretty much what happened with that rivalry. Now, fans, with these rivalries now, there's many rivalries that people want to see. You can name your rivalries if you want. Email us your rivalries, your questions. That's what this show is about. You know, there's 80s, 90s, the Attitude Era. There's a lot of them that stick out. You know, there's Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. Those two go back since the 80s when Hulk Hogan became champion. And then Macho Man ended up winning the title at WrestleMania 4 in the tournament. And he thought that Hulk Hogan was his friend with the Mega Powers. But then, as they say, the Mega Powers exploded. That just led to that rivalry going into SummerSlam and steel cage matches. It was just awesome. That era of the 80s, to me, the rivalries were awesome. That to this day, I still think about the 80s. That I'm an old school person that loves wrestling.
Now, we can go to the new schools. Like, take this rivalry, for example. Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, former Shield brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have a rivalry going on right now, but this is not their first rivalry. Now, the first rivalry started when Seth Rollins betrayed
Mm-hmm.
Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns to join the Authority. And Dean Ambrose didn't like that. That's at the time. Dean Ambrose was the face of the WWE, and Seth Rollins was the heel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's go here, where sadly Roman Reigns is out due to a sickness, and we can go to Dean Ambrose
Mm-hmm.
and Seth Rollins now. Dean Ambrose is the heel, and Dean Ambrose clearly stated that he was tired of being controlled by the Shield.
Exactly.
So, I think him being controlled by the Shield had a lot to do with his heel turn.
With his heel turn, of course, exactly. And that's what led to their fierce rivalry. And this goes back to when Dean Ambrose was a face with the Shield, and that's when Seth Rollins at the time was with the Authority. And that's what led to that. You know, but, you know, authorities don't last long. You know, also, one match that sticks out to me, the Ultimate Warrior against Macho Man Randy Savage. Career-ending match at WrestleMania 7. But this all began at the 1991 Royal Rumble when the Ultimate Warrior fought Sergeant Slaughter, lost to Sergeant Slaughter due to the Macho Man Randy Savage hitting him over the head with a scepter. That's what led to their career-ending match, which was a phenomenal match at WrestleMania 7 between these two. That a lot of people, including myself, thought the Ultimate Warrior was going to lose. But he won. Sadly, unfortunately, the Ultimate Warrior and the Macho Man are no longer with us. You know, they were great legends. But they're always going to be in our memory, and they're also two Hall of Famers that will always be remembered.
Now, speaking of rivalries, and a rivalry that is very awesome is, well, in my opinion, I think this rivalry is very awesome. Umaga and John Cena.
Yes.
Those guys were going at it. It started when John Cena claimed his WWE title and Umaga came. Did he come to wrestling, or was he like?
He came to wrestling, okay. And he came out and put John Cena through a table.
Yes.
That's what began their rivalry going, leading up to the Royal Rumble.
Now, a lot of fans thought that John Cena didn't have a lot of hope, because in the Last Man Standing match, John Cena had a stomach injury. Umaga beat him to a bloody pulp. And it was like there was no sign of John Cena winning.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, John Cena is getting hope and is getting like more fierce. He has the strong look in his eyes.
That rivalry was fierce. It was a great Last Man Standing match. John Cena won, but he got hurt pretty bad. But he was triumphant. But as I said, fans, to me, I'm an old school person. I like the 80s and the 90s rivalries. My son is more into the new age with the Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, which I wouldn't mind seeing that match. AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. That would be a heck of a battle. Those two really are great technical wrestlers that would put on a hell of a show. That could be a rivalry to talk for ages. And there's some rivalries today that some people want to see. Is there one in mind that you would want to see that two athletes haven't fought before?
Honestly, they have fought in a fatal 4-way, but two heavyweights I would like to see fight is Samoa Joe and Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is the monster among men. Mm-hmm. Braun Strowman is a very intense wrestler. He claims the ring. Now Samoa Joe, he announced that he was joining the Royal Rumble. And once he announced when he was joining the Royal Rumble, as a quick recap, he just went mad. He was going after every wrestler that was in the Royal Rumble. So yes, I would absolutely love to see that.
That would be a great match, because we remember when Samoa Joe fought Brock Lesnar, and that was an excellent rivalry as well. But this will do it, fans, for this topic of the greatest rivalries. Before we go, fans, we would just like to put out there a couple of indie promotions. First one would be East Coast of Pro Wrestling in New Jersey. We'd like to shout out Frankie Flo. He's the promoter and CEO and owner. Check him out. They're going to be having an event on February 8th. They're going to have their main event going from The Man versus Robbie E for the ECPW heavyweight title, and Tito Santana versus Prince Akatana. Download the app, Awesome TV. They're on every Tuesday, 9 and 9:30. You don't want to miss it. They have excellent talent, excellent cards every Tuesday. Another promotion we would like to shout out, Atomic Revolutionary Wrestling, owned by Alex Red, which they got two upcoming events coming up that we're going to go to. February 15th, 301 Tucker Lane, Cocoa, Florida, 32926. We're going to be there. You should too. And they also got another event on the 16th. But the 15th is the one you want to go to, because that's the 2-year anniversary of the upcoming show, Uprising. You don't want to miss it. Our next topic, fans, for next week's show is going to be the greatest factions of all time. From the Shield to DX, the Four Horsemen, and much, much more. Thank you for watching, fans. Feel free to follow us and like us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Evolution of Pro Wrestling. And feel free to email us your questions and comments at evolutionofprowrestling@gmail.com. Good night, wrestling fans.